Rana, I think we're back. And you
We're
were in
back.
the middle of saying something I really wanted to hear when the whole thing shut down. You were saying, speaking of conversation, these days, so much of our conversation is virtual, and then you froze. Can we pick up there?
Yes, I was saying, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so I was saying so much of our conversation is virtual. And so we've been thinking a lot about how to make these connections still as empathetic and still as effective in a virtual world. And I have a theory that we need to over amplify these nonverbal signals. So, for example, as we're talking, I need to make sure that I nod my head clearly or I smile clearly in response to what you're saying. Or if you're like sharing a sad story, then I do my puppy face. Because I think otherwise, if we all keep poker faces on our Zoom conversations or not show video at all, it feels like a one-way. It feels like a one-way conversation. But I'm curious what you've been finding in your studies of.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And as this doesn't sound like a conceptual breakthrough, but I think the size of your monitor makes all the difference in the world. Right now, I'm looking at you, and you are the size of a baseball card. And so I can't see the very fine motor movements of your mouth or eyes. And so I need you to exaggerate your speech and your emotions to understand what you're feeling. But when I do occasionally talk to people on a much bigger screen and they're close up and I can really see their faces in real size, I must say, I'm astounded by how quickly I forget that the conversation isn't face to face. So I don't think I think it's a very small technological leap from face to face to a very palpable virtual conversation, and it has a lot to do with the size of your damn monitor.
That's so interesting. That's an easy fix. So here's another thing that we've looked at Affectiva. We've looked at kind of conversational dynamics. And for example, like how often do women get cut off in a conversation, or what are the right factors that encourage maybe people who are, less of an extrovert to participate in these virtual conversations. Have you looked at any of these factors at all?
Well, we haven't. And everything so far, we've studied nothing but dyadic conversation. Mm-hmm. What you and I are doing here is just entirely different than what we would do if there were just two other people in the room. Right. Now we have to, so you and I negotiate turn taking easily. We're giving each other nonverbal cues, and then my sound stream will pause and you'll understand it's your turn. In fact, we know human beings, friends who are talking, take turns with milliseconds between their utterances. It's astounding. But add two more people and it suddenly becomes a very difficult thing. We have to be extremely conscious of who talked and who didn't. Is someone dominating? Is someone not? So a triadic or a quadratic conversation, these are entirely different beasts. Wow. And you and I both know so little is known about human conversation. It's the single most common form of human social activity, and we know less about it than we know about the basal ganglia in the brain. It's astounding.
That is fascinating. So, and I think this is something that our kind of technology could really help quantify these streams of data in a way that maybe would not be possible otherwise.
I think so too. I mean, that's been one of the big impediments to studying human conversation is you need two real people, they need to talk, and then what do you do with all the verbal output?
Right.
It's not like circling a 3 on a scale. It doesn't give you a nice, clean quantitative measure to analyze. So scientists have gone in search of easier problems. But I do think Affectiva is right there in helping us produce data that are highly analyzable, and we're going to learn a lot about human conversation because of people like you. I thought Rana was just frozen in rapt attention with what I was saying, but it turns out her picture is frozen